Hello everyone. So first of all, I would like to thank you all for the amazing support you've shown in my very first build and very scuffed video too. That was very totally unexpected and amazing. So I would like to tell you a very brief and very sad story. I was doing a juiced T17 map, and I decided to blow up one massive expedition thingy. And I must have I never checked what the modifiers are because I trust in my beloved Bama to always be able to clear everything. And unfortunately, I must have picked 8 different increases to crit damage or whatever, damage of all types, penetration, something. And 1 billion monsters spawned. And when my PC stopped lagging, not only was I dead, but most importantly, my animate guardian was dead. So since I'm a safe individual and can be trusted in the presence of women and children, I slammed my head against the wall. I sold all my items and I immediately deleted my character and I made a new one. And the idea of this new character is that not only my animate guardian will never die again because I don't have one, so he cannot die, but also I will never die again. So this is the build that I've put up. This is a Herald of Agony Necromancer. And this is probably the most complicated build in the game or something. I mean, not literally the most complicated, but it has to be tied for there. It's if Bama was a very beautiful, elegant katana that just cuts straight through, this is like a Swiss clock or something where 1,000 tiny little moving parts that all are absolutely needed. Otherwise, it's shit and doesn't work. So, since this is so complicated, actually, we will start with a very preliminary presentation, and then I will go over a massive amount of detail. The first part of the video will be basically all that you actually need to know, and then I will spend the rest of the time basically doing troubleshooting because this, as I said, this build is very complicated and it's very easy not to have it work. However, when it does work, I think it's really, really good. So yeah. And I will now go over this. By the way, I wasn't joking about deleting my characters. As you can see here, you cannot find it there because it doesn't exist. It's been sent to the void. It was level 97, by the way. It was on the first page in POE Ninja. You could actually see it there. No longer the case. So anyway, yeah. So we'll start with the preliminary information. And I've decided to present it in the most captivating way possible, and that is a PowerPoint presentation. So let's go. Alright, here we are. So here's our little friend, the Herald of Agony, and by the way, this has Herald of Agony Necromancer, but it not only it is playable on pretty much every ascendancy that has a skill tree point, as most of our points are pretty much only spent in cluster jewels and stuff. I'm not even sure the Necromancer is the best ascendancy. It is the best when it comes to damage, but for everything else, there are probably Trickster, I would say, is the overall better choice. So, a quick RIP to our animate guardian friend Bob. Fuck you, he died. He made me waste 12 divines. So let's go. So what is Herald of Agony? It is essentially an aura stacker that utilizes many pure agony cluster jewels, as you can see on screen, to easily scale damage while focusing everything else on defense. That is because of the Herald of Agony skill. As you can see, in POE, how do you do damage? You must have a big flat quantity that must be increased by a high percentage, and you must apply it quickly to enemies. And as we can see from the presentation, the beautiful thing about Herald of Agony, which makes this skill absolutely insane, is that it has everything by itself. The Agony Crawler, which is the actual minion that gets spawned by the aura, leveling, it gets more flat damage, so this is the base amount. Then this base amount gets multiplied by a larger percentage, and then this larger percentage gets inflicted with faster and faster attack speed. So we get all our flat damage, all our multipliers, and all our attack speed from one single source. What this means is that we only need to scale levels from Herald of Agony, nothing else, and everything else can be spent into defense. So, what is the budget from this build? I estimate between 35 and 40 divines. Prices might go up a little bit. I don't think I have the power to influence prices in any way, even if 10 of you decided to do this build, it wouldn't budge the prices much. But there's some fluctuation between prices. So this is like a reassurance I want to give you. Most of our budget is spent on jewels, basically on cluster jewels and abyss jewels. And so like you need to be high level just to socket those, because you need the skill points. So basically you're not allowed to spend money before you're level 90 or something. So you have all those levels to farm currency for when you actually need to spend. And here, let's go over some of our most expensive items. So we have an Aegis Aurora. I set it at 1.5 divines. This is not true at the moment. I think you can get one for like 15 chaos. But this is a very meta item. So at the beginning of every league, like it will be 1.5 divines, maybe even 2. Then we're using a Skin of the Lord. We want it with Magebane. There are a couple of other keystones that are useful. But this is not necessary. Like even without it, it's pretty good. And with a shit capstone that has no effect on us, you can find it from 1 divine or even less. Then we are using a 1 Watcher's Eye. We are using the energy shield on it modifier, which is very on demand. So you will not get it for less than 2 divines or something. But maybe you get lucky and you find someone who doesn't know how to price their their items. But that's the only expensive modifier that we need. And since we're an aura stacker, we have like 5 different auras set up. There are like 20 possible like affixes that the Watcher's Eye can have that are all useful to us. So this is really like, this is why it doesn't get crazy expensive, because there are a lot of combinations that are useful to us, and we only really need the energy shield on it. Then this is our like the lion's share of the budget, basically. Cluster jewels. I set it to 25 to 30 divines. You can get scuffed ones for less than that, and you can get better ones for significantly more. The cool thing is that, cool I guess, the last one you will only need it from like level 96 to 100, so yeah, you have like endless time to farm for this item. And not only that, but you can also spend those last skill points elsewhere in the tree. Like if we could spend 200 points, we would happily do so. Like we are starved for points basically. So even if you're missing one, you can still put your points elsewhere and get an advantage from them. And then these are 2 items that need one very specific like corrupted implicit. We will see them in detail later. I've set both to 1 to 2 divines. This might be lower than that. And more so, especially so the the Aber's unification is mandatory to have the implicit, because the implicit that we are using is the mana reservation efficiency. You can also, if that's too expensive, like you can use 1 random helmet with mana reservation as an implicit, and that will be pretty much as good as the unique. And then this is another where you can get it way later into the build, because this only improves our single target, as we're not using our curses for AoE in any way. So yeah, you can get it without the implicit, and I think it's like 10 chaos or something. And then we have our abyss jewels. You will choose how many to get basically. However, we are looking for some very strong mods, and we kind of need the tier 1 mods for them, especially with the mana regen and the minion chance to poison. It's kind of important that they be a tier 1, otherwise you run out of mana, for instance. So yeah, those would be expensive. They would be around 2 divines each. But I mean, overall, like, it's not too bad. And this is an example of one, like, kind of endgame setup. The other items I haven't mentioned, United in Dreams Catlas, there's a very expensive version that runs a double implicit with, like, a +1 level 2 minion gems and increased crit chance as a different implicit. That's a crazy amount of divines. Without those implicits, it's like 10 chaos or something, 20 chaos maybe, so that's free basically. Then the amulet is free. We're not even using an expensive anointment, so that's great. The boots are literally 2 chaos. And the rings are the rings are they can get somewhat expensive. However, like we want rings for Herald of Agony modifiers basically, and we are only like nobody else is running this shit, so there might be a surplus of availability, so the prices will not be too bad, and the belt is cheap too. So what does this get us? I think this is pretty nuts. By the way, I should be noted that this is with Pierce spec'd in. If you take it out and bring in a single target gem, this shoots up to 50 million or something. This is insane. Like 40 chaos elemental hit, 15 chaos physical hit. You have a lot of energy shield resistance. You have ward. You have a lot of evasion chance. You have a lot of armor. You have block chance, high spell block chance. We are capped on suppression. We are capped on resistances with even 80% for cold and massive over capping for lightning. I mean, this is insane to me. And we're also immune to chaos. So now let's go over the pros and cons. And as you can see, there's like a bunch of stuff here. So let's go over the pros. We are incredibly tanky. Like this is the scuffed version. This is like at level 95, I think, with all shit items. Like you'll change some of this stuff. You'll get other implicits. This can be way better. Like my version of it, like my actual character, has surpassed like what can be calculated here, and just as the inf symbol, like Chaos Max set. So very tanky. It's cheap to assemble. Like you have many off-mate items. As I said, like your weapon, which is the best in slot, is 15 chaos. Like, and there are two different options for the weapon. One of them is even 1 chaos, and it's like a 5% DPS decrease to that. So it's very unique. Like nobody is running a build like this, so you get to feel special if you don't have any like success in your real life. The build is made entirely of unique items, which means you don't need to be able to craft. Yeah, and then you can choose like how much stuff is how much the build plays itself and how many buttons you want to press. There are versions of this that run multiple automations, and you basically just hold down your right click and they're pretty fine. But if you want like extra layers of defense, extra security, we run 2 Val skills that we are both able to press to get even more defense and more damage too with other setups. And as also like amazing single target damage. Like that this is the version. Like this is pretty good, by the way. This is like an end game build basically, but with 30 divines. And this can shoot up to like stupid numbers. Like the POB they have set up on this build, like on the forum page, as the uber optimized build at over 600 millions. Do not assemble that. Like not only is it multiple mirrors, so it's definitely not worth it, but like you to get to this stupid number, you have to sacrifice a good amount of tankiness, which is not true, by the way, for like the 100 million or 150 million like setup, which is what makes this really good. Like you get to these insane damage numbers while still having multiple 100,000 EHP. Okay, so now let's go over the cons, and there are a bunch. It is incredibly clunky to assemble. Like this build really doesn't want to work. Like you will get to the point where it works, but until you get there, you're screwed. Like it sucks. You constantly die. You transition to chaos inoculation later into the build, and sometimes, like before that, you will step into a puddle of poison and immediately die. There's a bunch of stuff, right? There's a bunch of moving parts, and until you've got them all, as I said, the build will roll against you. Like it really feels like sometimes you're basically handicapping yourself playing this. Now, being made entirely of uniques has also downsides. You cannot like make this cheaper if you're good at crafting, because there's nothing to craft basically. I mean, if you're capable of making your cluster jewels, That's a good discount, but that's the only thing where basically like skill will make it cheaper. It's very fragile until you've assembled it fully, and we will see later why. But like to be very like brief about it, it's because this build is basically like 9 different layers of defense stacked on top of each other, and they all rely on the lower layers basically. And so until you've got them all and you've set them all up, like you're very fragile. So to the last two cons, the Herald of Agony AI has been coded by a drunk chimpanzee, so this is true. It's one of the worst AIs, I think, in for the minions in the game. Like, it will stand behind the wall and keep shooting into the wall while there's an enemy like right around the corner. It won't follow you. This is kind of fixed in my setup, as I have as you run both Predator and Convocation. So basically, you constantly recall it to you, and you tell it what it has to attack. So that's not too bad, but that's like 3 sockets that you sacrifice just to fight against the AI, basically. And then, as you see in the video, it's not the fastest mapper, and also it doesn't have burst damage, it doesn't have instant damage. It needs to ramp a tiny bit. So, lastly, I want to answer a couple of questions. Mostly, like to anticipate that I will go over in more detail about all these topics later into the video. So first of all, can you league start with it? Kinda. It's not great, but I mean it's not awful. What you do basically is you start like poisonous concoctions and you transition to it. I would recommend around level 85. I did it at 77 and it was miserable. It was truly awful until I managed to grind a couple more levels and get like a couple of my energy shield items that then allowed me to switch to Chaos Inoculation, that then allowed me to run other auras. So it sucks until it's very good, basically. The second question is basically maybe you see this video and you already try this build, or you try it afterwards and then you get a bunch of problems. I cannot do every possible like instance of troubleshooting that could happen here. This is basically just to say, write a comment under this video if you're struggling in any way. I read all the comments, I answer to everyone, so there's no problem. I will check your build. I will try to figure out what's wrong. Then what content can I do with this? Everything. The only thing that I don't think is great is Sanctum, mainly because we will see it later into the video. But basically, the way we stack poison, which is needed to summon our Herald of Agony, is through a custom channel setup with Recyclone, and so we need to kind of be in melee range of enemies, and it takes like a kind of, as it has ramp time, like you don't one-shot the guards, and so you have to also dodge them, but you also have to be melee to them. Maybe when you got like 100 million plus damage, like you have so much damage that it's kind of doable, but I wouldn't recommend it. And then I want to kind of dispense with every like possible accusation of basically this being a beta. So if I think it's a good, why is nobody playing this? Well, to answer you, it actually, people are playing this. This is not like my invention or something. But I think it has to really much really to do with the clunkiness of everything. Like you will struggle until you've set up everything, and that's just something people don't want to deal with. Like you want your build to feel good from the first moment, especially if it's on league start. And then, so you don't have any pre-farmed currency, so you have to earn every tiny piece at the beginning. So the struggle phase is especially long. I think this is the biggest reason why this is not popular, and also the AI being awful pretty much contributes to it. And then on the opposite end, so maybe you're disincentivized from league starting it, and then so you league start with another build, you farm your mirror or something, And then you think, what build can I play? And then you do like Molten Strike of the Zenith or some other like amazing build that is extremely expensive and extremely powerful. The best part about this build is that it can reach crazy numbers with very low investment, but it's still investment. Like, so it basically lives in this like no-go zone where it's worse than League starters, so you don't League start with it. But it's also, on the other hand, it's also worse than like crazy end game builds, and so you also don't spend all your currency to invest in it. Yeah. Can I play other ascendancies? Yes. This is one of the most like versatile. Like you can do it with Juggernaut, with Occultist, with Trickster, with Champion. Pretty much, probably even with Hierophant or something. Yeah. You can do this with Guardian also. I've picked Necromancer because it's the highest DPS one, and I used to play DPS in World of Warcraft, so if my number is not big, I feel very insecure about the size of my genitals, so I have to play Necromancer. But as I said, I think that Trickster is probably the best. Lastly, unfortunately, I'm in no dig with this, but the forum guide is written by somebody who clearly doesn't have English as the first language, and sometimes it gets a bit harder to understand what they're writing is. They don't really enjoy putting all the verbs that are required by grammar, let's say. So if you have any questions with that, I can probably try to answer it too. And that's it. So I will see you now in game to basically go over details, do troubleshooting, explain how the builds work, and everything else. Alright everyone, here we are. So first of all, I know I've addressed kind of this already, but I want to go over my items here briefly and explain why they're slightly different from the POB I've shown before. Yes, I do have a mage build, as I said. This really does nothing for us. This is probably one of the worst build for a mage build. The only thing that it really does, it allows us to massively overcap on resistances, which is nice when you pick the resistance shredding altars, but it's really not necessary. It also saves us one skill point because it gives us strength, and otherwise we would take this point here. But that's about it. The Graven's Belt is perfectly fine, and it works pretty much just as well. This is a very minor upgrade for a very large sum of money. I drop Ninora's Lock, whatever it was, which was worth 200 divines, and I've never had a mage build, so I figured let's get one. The other thing that you might notice is different is the weapon. We actually have 3 weapon choices. So this is the best in slot for DPS, which I've shown before. This is the cheap option that I mentioned. This is like 1 chaos or something, and it's pretty much as good as the 2 other options, because it gives +3 levels to our Herald of Agony, and we have a very specific level cap. I mean, each and every level makes it significantly better. However, we really want to hit level 34, because as you can see, if I switch my weapon, this goes from 12% increase the physical damage per virulence you have to 11%. That might seem little, but since we're having from 80 to 100 stack of virulences, that's like a 100% less physical damage, basically. I mean, not less in the POE less term, but we are losing on basically 80% increase the phys damage. And our increases are pretty significant, as we have a massive flat physical damage, as you can see from the last line. It's kind of 210 per virulence stack, and once again that's 80 stacks or something. So these are the only 2 items that are different. Let's go over the gems. So we have our main setup with a bunch of gems. I'm currently running the Awakened versions of it. Totally fine without it. Nothing, doesn't really matter. Totally fine with Empower level 3. yeah, that's not a big deal. And this, this weapon, by the way, I'm running this because this is the tankiest one. So since I have already more than enough damage for my tier 16 map farming that I'm currently doing, I don't need more damage than this. So I'm running the tankiest weapon because it gives us energy shield and mana. So we get to this almost 5k energy shield, which is pretty nice. So what are our gens? We're running Spirit Offering and a nerf with Arcanist Brand. Our Herald of Agony does crit a lot, and it does a lot of damage with its crits, so this is a big buff for it. And we are using a nerf instead of Desecrate or another spell, because we actually don't want the Spirit Offering to consume all the corpses, and we actually want to have corpses around us, because we are running this Ascendancy for the Necromancer, which gives us a 10% more damage, so that's the multiplicative one, and 10% reduced damage if you have a corpse nearby. So against the bosses, the cool thing about Unearth is that it spawns the corpses over like a time period, so it spawns a bunch at first, they get consumed by Spirit Offerings, but then it keeps spawning more. So we still have corpses around us. So this is a one buff setup, it's here on R. And then this is a... You will run Clarity as another aura, by the way, not only because it gives you 3% increased attack and cast speed from Commander of Darkness passive, but also to kind of fix your mana problems. We will see it in just a tiny bit, but this mana is one of the other problems from this build. And then I'm running Withering Step and Despair. I like Withering Step instead of Frostblink. I have Frostblink in my other weapon, so if I do need to Frostblink, I can, basically. But it's really not necessary. Like, you don't actually want to blink away from stuff because you want to be close to them to get your stacks. And Withering Steps not only gives you a chance to avoid hits, it inflicts withers to enemies. So this helps us increase our damage. Yeah. And then we have Despair, which is another big curse, because we do 100% chaos damage. Once again, another bonus of being a necromancer, we get a natural strength, so your minions convert 100% feast to chaos. So yeah, we do 100% chaos damage, so this is basically 32% more damage. Then in our boots, this is our main setup. So we're running Cyclone with Cast While Channeling, and then a level 1 and a level 1 Tornado of Elemental Turbulence and Ball Lightning of Orbiting. These are all the massive spell effects you've seen at the beginning of the video. This is kind of not optional, I'm sorry. There are other options that you can run instead of this. This is one of the best setup, because basically the way our Herald of Agony works is that it deals damage based on our poison stacks that we have active. So we want to stack as much poison as possible. We don't care about the poison damage, we just want a lot of stacks. And these two gems, Tornado and Ball Lightning, they're some of the highest frequency of its skills that you can cast. So this allows us to get a lot of hits very quickly, which in turn allows us to get a bunch of poison stacks. So that's pretty good. There are other ways to do it. Another way is have it here with Storm Burst and the chance to poison instead of a tornado, and Ball Lightning of Static. That's the better option for a single target, because the Ball Lightning of Statics, it's more than the one of Orbiting if there's only one target. But yeah, this is our standard setup to apply poison, basically. And then here we have some of our auras. We have Discipline, Determination, and Grace. So Evasion Rating, more Energy Shield, and more Armor. So our big layers of defense. And then here we have Val Molten Shell, which is another layer of defense, Assassin's Mark, Convocation, and Automation. So Automation automates Molten Shell and Convocation. So this Convocation will constantly recall our minion to us, This is great to fight against the Herald of Agony AI, which is awful, as I said before. So that's really useful. And this was basically a free slot. I've picked Val Molten Shell because with our setup, this is like a 4K elf shield basically that you get every 4 seconds or something. So that's very good. Like it's like a lot of extra defense. And since this is the Valve version, we also get an active that we can press. And this is once again, I think this is with my setup right now, it's like 8 to 9K shield. Same goes for Valve Discipline, by the way. Massive energy shield recharge. Yeah. And then we have a Signal Prey because one of our support gems is Predator, which, if you don't know, gives you an active ability which basically forces the Herald to attack the minion, the enemy that you actually want to attack. And this makes it so... by the way, you can do maps without this and with another one. I think that, for instance, damage while at full alpha, since the Herald of Agony is immune, it's always active, and it's a very nice DPS upgrade. And that's probably better for maps. This is overall the best for single target, because if you summon like the base 13% more with the 25% more, it comes out to 38, which is more than any other support basically that you can get. But for maps where you don't need single target as much, and this would probably better be changed for 8 damage on full life or vile toxins or some other options basically. This also, like if you don't have the automation and convocation setup, this also helps a lot because you can kind of direct the Herald, so it kind of like absorbs 2 different functions at the same time. Okay, and now the monstrosity that is this tree. So the first thing you might notice is that basically we have very little like points that we do spend on our tree. This is not for a lack of options. Like there are a lot of points that we would like to take. Like what about this? A mana reservation efficiency for Herald of Agony. The Herald of Agony consumes a crazy amount of mana because the cost multiplier from support gems also apply to the Herald itself. So this makes it like a reserve more than 100% of your mana if you're not heavily investing into mana reservation, which is what we're doing. So we would love to take this. This is more maximum energy shield. We would love to take this. This is chance to block spell damage. We would love to take this. There's more increased energy shield here. We would love to take this. We would love to take 50% of the energy shield is added to your stun threshold, or the regenerate 2% of energy shield per second. There are basically unlimited points that we would like to spend. We would also like for DPS, actually I will get this as soon as I level up a bit, we would love to come back here and take this entire wheel for crit chance and crit multi for our minions. So yeah, so basically, as I was saying before, like now you can clearly see, if you don't have all your clusters already, there are plenty of things you can get to. One more power charge here, also very good. Okay, so what do we actually take? There are a couple of very efficient points that we do take. This is 25. This is 25% to poison on it. And also the will basically makes you immune to critical strikes, except from like ranged attacks where you haven't had time to poison them already. But those are like few and far between. Ghost Dance. This is another layer of defense that we do have. Since we have a bunch of evasion rating, this doesn't limit our energy shield, and we also regenerate a lot every time we get hit. Here we get another 25% chance to poison, and also increased poison duration. This is another point you can take, like 10% damage over time multiplier for poison. Ain't bad, but it's not as good as everything else we take. We like this wheel here for spell suppression. I don't have spell suppression on my Watcher's Eye, and the ones that do have it, get very expensive, so that's why I haven't included it in the build. But as soon as you get that, you can also remove this point here because we're capped already. Even though our mage build giving us permanent phasing means that this node is a free 8% basically. So yeah, so that also can be gone. These points also can be gone when you're overcapped on resistances like I am, and then you take this part of the tree, which saves you a couple of points, but I don't need it already. And then we get a couple of very important things. As I said, we are struggling heavily for mana reservation because we want to reserve our massive Herald of Agony, which by itself reserves more than 1% of our mana, plus 3 other auras, 4 actually if you're running Clarity like I am, which means that we really want mana reservation. So we're taking it wherever we can. We take it from here, we take it from here, mana reservation. We anoint 16% increase mana reservation, and then we get it from our helmet, increase mana preservation. We get it from our cluster jewels, 15% mana reservation efficiency to grace, and 80% mana reservation efficiency for discipline. And like when you're at lower levels, you're also running the one that reduces the determination. And of course, the rings by themselves do grant a great like increased mana reservation efficiency for the Herald of Agony. So yeah, so basically what you need your mana reservation efficiency in order to be able to use your auras. And your auras are quite important because like one of the main problems that this build has in getting up is that you need to cycle somewhat next to enemies to poison them. You can poison them just with your tornadoes and ball lightning, but you would also like to actually hit with cyclone because cyclone by itself does a lot of hits. So you're kind of basically cursed to face tank everything. And you will reach a point where you're perfectly capable of doing so and nothing will kill you. But until you do, you have this thing where basically you're not allowed to play safe because you need to be right next to every enemy in order to stack your poison. Which really makes you need all of your auras, which really makes you need the mana reservation. Like this is part of the problem that I was talking about before, where basically it's a bunch of like moving parts that all have to fit. And then you then have one massive mana problem. This consumes a lot of mana. Like you can see when I'm spinning how fast like it's going and regenerating. Currently this, I think, yeah, this is self-sufficient. I think I can spin forever. But then if you also have Arcanist Brand pulsing, if you also have Molten Shell activating and Convocation constantly activating from automation, like this is a lot of mana to basically sustain. Which begs the question of how are we sustaining it? Basically, this 1% increase mana regeneration rate per 1% chance to block spell damage. We want to be capped or as close to capped as possible with our chance to block spell damage. Where is it? Spell damage suppression? No. Chance to block spell damage. It's currently 51%. If I press a skill, it goes to 75%. This will be permanently 75% in maps. So this is 75% increased mana regeneration rate. However, how do we get all this block spell damage chance? We get it from these cluster jewels, which are the most expensive jewels we get basically in the non-ultra expensive version of the build. They give a 14% block spell damage chance each, and we're running free. So that's 42% chance to block spell damage altogether. So basically, until you get your clusters, you have 40% of your mana regeneration rate, basically gate cap from you. You cannot access it. But that's still also not enough. So we are running mana regeneration on basically every jewel except the one I moused over first, of course. But like here, 3.7 mana per second. I think I also have it. Also, there's also the Discipline Aura, by the way, another mana regen bonus. Then, as I said, the 3.7 here, 4 here, another 3.7 here, and no, here not, because I had enough. But like you can see, this is a lot of like mana regen that you get from jewels, and until you've allocated them all, basically you can kind of constantly run out of mana, which is why I've also put on clarity. However, we are running into another problem, because clarity gets more levels from our increased levels from global modifiers, like for instance from our amulet and stuff. So you cannot have a level 1 clarity, which probably would be more than enough. It automatically becomes level 4, which means that it reserves a shit ton of mana. So basically, like currently, I don't think, can I even press? Okay, I actually can press it right now. For the longest part, like until I got a high enough level and I put on this weapon or whatever, I couldn't even actually use clarity to regenerate my mana, because it will reserve too much mana, and I would be forced to like give up on another aura to use it, which is terrible. Also, you kind of lose like by not taking this. You lose a chance to block spell damage, which loses you mana regeneration rate. Like it constantly keeps like basically I don't know, tripping itself. What else do we have here? So these are like your main DPS sources. This is the maximum amount of stacks you can get out. Each one of these is a massive DPS booster, so you kind of want to get them as soon as possible. And then here we have the Watcher's Eye that I was telling you about before. Very important, the energy shield per enemy hit, because we are hitting so fast. This is a big chunk of our tankiness and of our resistances, which is kind of fortunate, because once again, like it's gate cap between putting on your clusters and also getting a Watcher's Eye, which is kind of expensive too. And also, by the way, another thing I forgot to mention, we do not have enough attributes for anything, basically, because like look at this tree. We don't take attributes from any of these points. Like we only have the dex and the int from this side of the tree. We have no strength at all, which is why before you get a mage blood, you have to run at least one physique. But that's also not enough. So you're expected to get a lot of it from your small passives from your jewels. So as you can see here, I get dexterity here, I get attribute here, attributes and elemental resistances. You also get no elemental resistances from your tree, by the way, except these two nodes, which like you're supposed to eventually be able to get rid of them because you get enough from your clusters. So basically, until you get your clusters, you're also not capped on your stats, which doesn't allow you then to put on the stuff that you need, and it's another layer of like complexity and stuff basically not working your way. You also want to put on some tattoos with chance to poison on it to increase your poison chance, of course, which also every time you put one of these on, you lose some int. And also int is mana regen, which you kind of need. So it's basically like this delicate balancing act where you slowly check all of your boxes to then create the final monstrosity. That is the build. Another thing I want to mention, there's a couple more interesting jewels. We run this one. This is the golden rule. We are immune to poison, of course, because we run a chaos inoculation, so this does no damage to us. However, inflicting poison even to ourselves still counts as inflicting poison. So basically, this doubles the stacks you get until you get to 100. This is not actually a DPS boost. It's just it makes your ramp times that much faster, and it better allows you to keep your stacks up. In single target. So this is a very important jewel, and thankfully it's very cheap. Unfortunately, like if there would be some way to like kind of self-inflict bleed, that would be great because it will also give us increased armor. I haven't figured out a convenient way to do so. So we're kind of wasting that part. Also, by the way, another thing, I have permanent bleeding and corrupted blood immunity from my mage blood. Usually you would have to get it in one of these jewels, which will make that jewel, like either you sacrifice on useful mods otherwise. Like for instance, my it used to be here and it used to have no mana regen and like 10% chance to poison instead of the current 15%. So that was significantly worse just to get corrupted blood immunity. And then I used to run, besides having a flask dedicated to it, which is also like how is it set up in the POE, where the flask removes bleeding and it only activates when you start bleeding. I also used to have a steel skin instead of molten shell, which is a way smaller shield on us, but it also removes bleeding too. So that was because you really cannot afford like to take it. So yeah, basically that's it. The also like this is kind of cute. You want a curse enemy with temporal chain on it. Not only because it's a DPS increase, but also because of this master, which gives us another 20% poison chance on cursed enemy, and we curse everything, so this is permanently active, and it's very cool. Yeah, I'm looking around if I'm missing something. My watcher's eye, you've seen the jewel there, these are our trees. You have some flexibility here, like this can be either 2 or 3 passives once. This was massive, like crazy expensive to cap my strength basically. That's not necessary. It's mostly because I didn't plan ahead, so a couple of these do not have strength. Like this has only a +2. This doesn't even have strength on it. You need, I think, 159 strengths to run your determination, and you get no strength from your tree. So basically, you're constantly struggling for strength. So you have to have it on the clusters. So mine is more expensive than it needs to be because I didn't plan ahead like how much strength I would need. But like if I like took this 11 that I get from here and like basically divided it between the other ones, it would have been easier. As I said, these are now 2 3-point ones. The earlier setup when you're running also the aura for determination, that's a 2-pointer. So basically you can pick and choose which one is the 2-pointer, so you can find basically the cheapest option that's available on the market. And we're also running a couple of tattoos here to increase maximum energy shield. I could probably take this out and it would be better for us because you don't need more than, I don't know, 4.5k or something, 4.4, 4.3. That's a kind of overkill. That's too much energy shield. It would be better to have more defense of some other capacity, basically. There's kind of diminishing returns. So yeah, that's the tree. Good luck, and I hope you spin. You spin me, baby, run, baby, run. And also don't forget that you have your 2 oh shit buttons when you're facing a particularly difficult pack, so you can press either one or both together, and that's a massive boost of survivability. So yeah, that was the build, and thanks a lot, and bye bye.